Oh, well, here I am. Hey, everybody, welcome in. It's the Cryptid Huntress. I'm Jessica Jones, and man, do we have a fantastic show for you guys tonight. This is going to be a nail biter, edge of your seat type of show because we are talking about the Grafton Monster tonight. My goodness, y'all, this is a weird cryptid, a strange monster that was sighted back in the 1960s. And man, we're going to be taking a deep dive into the Grafton Monster tonight. I have a surprise co-host with me tonight. I have our friend Dr. John Stamey here in the studio. I brought John on tonight because he knows a lot about, let's just say, I'm going to give you a little sneak peek. The Tulpa and let's see, like the Golem, manifested beings, things like that. There could very well be a connection between that and what we're going to be talking about tonight. Of course, he is another resident expert on cryptids as well. And yes, we have a lot to discuss. I have a lot of data for this. And yes, I do believe that this was a real creature. I do. After all this data for this blind remote viewing target, it was a coordinate remote viewing target. Okay, and lots of data out of this. If you guys would like to follow along with all the data, you guys want to see all the raw data, you could join my Patreon. That's the Cryptid Huntress over on Patreon. So thank you to all of my members over there. The data is all posted there right now. So thank you guys so much for all your support. I do appreciate that. It means the world to me. Also, I have updated my website today. And that's the cryptidhuntress.com. And I have a calendar of all of the events that I am going to be participating in. And John is the organizer of a couple of those conferences that are on that calendar right now. And so we'll talk about those when he comes up. But yes, I will be at that, the East Alabama Bigfoot Town Hall coming up next month. So that's my next event. I do hope you guys will come and hang out with us there. And there has been a new speaker added to the lineup, actually. So this is that. David Hewlett will be there. Actually, he's going to be taking over MK Davis's spot. MK won't be able to make it there. But yes, we have a great lineup of Flat Rock and Tyler Howell, Stacy Brown Jr., myself, David, and Del Boswell, and Bobby Dizzle. So y'all come up on that Saturday, January the 18th. Down in Opelika. I'll be there for that. So all the other events are on the ticker, including the Georgia Bigfoot Conference. We've got the World UFO Conference, the Full Disclosure Now Conference. There's a couple more that will be added to that pretty soon. Okay, so yeah. All right. Oh, and also I do have my shop. It's War Woman Goods. By the way, this necklace is in my shop. If you guys are interested in nice, like old Native American antique jewelry, this is not in my Etsy shop. This is on my website in the shop section. So if you guys are interested in beautiful jewelry and stuff, some of my bigger pieces are in my shop on my website, thecryptidhuntress.com. So y'all can go there. And I do have free merch with every purchase. Okay, so shout out to everybody who's buying all your Christmas goods at War Woman Goods. All right, well, let's get to our show tonight, y'all. We have so much to talk about. We have a ton of stuff to talk about tonight. We have a lot of connections to make, which is my favorite thing to do. I love making connections with all of these targets and all of the things that we talk about on each of the shows. All right, let me give you an idea of what we're talking about tonight. On June the 16th of 1965, a reporter for the Grafton Sentinel by the name of Robert Cockrell was making his way home. He was driving home. Around 11 o'clock at night, he reported seeing a white creature by the road. And he said it was white. It looked like it had seal-like skin, like a seal, not the tumor seal, like on Mel's hole. Y'all remember that? Seal-like skin and no visible head. All right, what does that remind y'all of? Blemmies, maybe? We talked about blemmies on the Davenport, Iowa remote viewing target. So he said it had no visible head and was between 7 to 9 feet tall and 4 feet wide. Okay, that's huge. It sounds kind of like a Bigfoot, actually. Nothing was discovered except a worn out spot in the grass where he said the creature was seen when he and his friends went back to go look and check it out. Cockrell was a journalist, wrote a small article in the Grafton Sentinel on June the 18th, a couple days later after this event. This report plunged the small town into a flurry of monster madness. It resulted in hundreds of monster hunters showing up in their town and around the region. And it's what they came to hunt, what now is known as the Grafton Monster. I don't think the town was really happy about everybody showing up, especially all the teenagers with their guns and their weapons and stuff. So I think that it was, there's been other cases like that we've talked about on my shows before, where hunting parties kind of get together. And that was the case there as well. And also, this is not too far from where the Mothman sightings were in West Virginia. West Virginia and the Flatwoods Monster as well. I mean, there's so many interesting cryptids out of that area. A lot of areas of high strangeness around West Virginia. And of course, one of my resident experts on cryptids is here, Dr. John Stamey. He's always had an interest in the paranormal. He runs a number of Comic-Cons, as well as Bigfoot, UFO, and now Flat Earth Comic-Cons and conferences. Okay. He also co-hosts Scary Cast, a podcast on Blog Talk Radio. And he has Bigfoot and Company on YouTube. And he's published several books, including Bigfoot Explorer and the Introduction to Hominology, Look Up to the Sky, Aliens, UFOs, and Anomalies, and Lizard, Bigfoot, and Friends. Please help me welcome to the show our good friend, Dr. John Stamey.
Hey there, Jessica. How are you doing?
I am pretty good. I am having a really good time looking into the Grafton Monster. The Grafton Monster. This is a new one for me. Have you heard of it?
I had not really heard of it, but it has the same flavor as a number of incidences that have happened in West Virginia and Ohio. It really does. And so I think that'll be fun to talk about because, you know, when you have so many patterns of the same type of behavior, it makes you wonder, well, are they the same and why are they the same? I think that's a very important point to delve into.
It is. Man, we have some wonderful comments. Our chat is popping. It is on and popping tonight. And Watt Live has a really interesting comment before we get the show going with the Grafton Monster. Today in 1945, 5 U.S. Navy Avenger torpedo bombers comprising Flight 19 disappeared in the Bermuda Triangle. Man, that's interesting. And yeah, it's really sad, but it's also really interesting. So yeah, we've covered the Bermuda Triangle before in past shows. And Marian says that West Virginia is chock full of cryptids. And I have to agree with that, John. What do you think? How many do they have up there?
I absolutely do. There's almost one around every corner. I think the Grafton Monster is very interesting because it's one that really doesn't get a lot of coverage, unlike things like the Mothman, Indrid Cold. And you know what's funny is when I was looking around about Indrid Cold, there's not a lot of connection that people make between the Mothman and Indrid Cold, but I believe there is, and maybe we can explore that one evening on one of your shows, maybe. How about that?
I would love that. Actually, I had been given that as a remote viewing target a long time ago, I think. We definitely did a show on Indrid Cold a while back. So yeah, that's worth looking into for sure. And I was actually making a connection between what we're talking about tonight with a Grafton Monster and Mothman too, because he's described as having no head, and I find that really interesting. because if you look at pictures of Mothman, a lot of the depictions of Mothman actually, he does not have a head. Here, let me pull this one up. It's just
Yeah,
a
let's
body
see
with
this.
wings. Mm-hmm. It
Yeah.
looks like a blimmy. Okay, a blimmy. That's one of my favorites. And so for people who aren't familiar with what a blimmy is like a human that has no head. It looks like a human, a humanoid, and the face is actually in the torso or in the chest. And this picture depicting Mothman, it looks very similar to that. It's almost like it's a blimmy with wings in that picture right there. And here's some pictures of blimmies. All right, these are just some depictions. John, blimmies were actually depicted on maps of the old world.
Really? Are these now? Now, let me ask you this: are these maps like those that we would have seen talking about some very strange occurrences?
Potentially. There's one in particular that I really like to refer to, and it's called the Piri Reis map. And that was actually published. It was put out in around 1513, I believe. That was centuries ago, hundreds of years ago. We have this map called the Piri Reis map right here, and it depicts blimmies, dog-headed men, dragons, and Bigfoots, and all sorts of other strange creatures that we've always been told are just mythological creatures. But they're here on this map.
Well, there are a lot of creatures that people call mythological that are real. Now, the Piri Reis map, in fact, I showed you this before the show. I have the authoritative version of the Piri Reis map. And what's interesting about it is these maps were published before a lot of the exploration, like for Antarctica and things like that. And they're very, very accurate. And that's what's in a way disturbing about them. It's like, how could people know what the actual outline of Antarctica was back in the 1500s before we really got there? I mean, people got to the United States around the time of Jesus, and so many explorers got here, but not to Antarctica. And Piri Reis is absolute proof that somebody knew something. And don't you find that a little bit odd?
I find it as odd as this picture right here. I sure do. I sure do. I don't know if this is real or if this is AI, John. I have no idea. Okay, but this is an interesting picture. If this were to be real, I'd say that's pretty cool right there. That would be what an actual blimmy would look like. And blimmies have actually come up in I did a remote viewing target. I did a blind target for a friend of mine, and we did a show on it. It was an underground cloning facility out of Davenport, Iowa. That was my target. And he said that he remembered. Yes, he said that he had remembered being there. And he had interacted with what looked like a person, a human that had a face on his chest. And he said that I don't think that he was really familiar with blimmies, but he said that he looked it up and it turned out to be a blimmy. Okay. And this was just years ago. But I just find this really, really odd. Okay. Especially if you were to encounter something like this at a cloning facility in the middle of America. Okay. A blimmy. I just know there's a whole lot of strange things that go on underground and underworld in these underground facilities. We don't know what all they're making down there, if they're cooking up experiments or, cloning all of our political figures. I think one of the claims to fame is what he was saying was this is the facility where they had cloned Hillary Clinton. That's what he said. And he was being serious about it. So for entertainment purposes only.
Oh my goodness.
Yeah, right. Right. So, but we're not really here to talk about blimmies tonight. Although I do think it could be a connection. We're here to talk about the Grafton Monster, and I would love to kind of go over the story, and I have a lot of remote viewing data on this. Okay, so
right, I've seen it, and that remote viewing data is very consistent with some of the ideas that I have had as I went through the material on the Grafton Monster. I've heard about it. I didn't really know much about it until you told me that you might like to have me on here. And I really went through it very carefully. There are a couple of stories online, and I think they're fairly accurate. I really do. And there's just something, I'm just going to say there is absolutely something out there. Don't think that this is just junk. It is really not. Because and I'll say this, I don't mean to take your thunder, but on like the 18th or the 18th or the 19th, 20 people from Grafton reported into the local newspaper. Now, 20 people don't report a sighting unless something happened. Just get that out of your head. There is safety in numbers. And these numbers are unbelievable. 20 people. I mean, if 3 people see something, well, whatever. But 20 people saw this thing. And one young gentleman, he was a high school student, said it looked like kind of a polar bear because it was white. And I mean, that was a good thought. I don't know how exact that was, but it was good that he started having some ideas of what it could be. And that's how we move toward finding out what is going on.
That's right. Well, okay, so I have a picture of a polar bear. Okay, so this is a polar bear. We all kind of have an idea in our head of what a polar bear looks like. Well, and then I'm going to show a picture of what he saw, something very similar. This is a depiction of something similar to what he saw. Now, this just might be from an actual video game, okay? Because there have been characters out of video games that have been fashioned from and emulated from this character and from the cryptid sighting. Actually, I believe it's called Fallout 76. There's a video game that shows this. Let's see, I can't hit my buttons. This is from the video game. Now, this is very similar to what he saw. You're going to find something very interesting. As I go into the data tonight, I wrote down the word tank. Okay, I wrote down the word tank. Let me. Okay, and so my son did not know that. My son didn't know what my show was on at all. And just about 5 minutes before we went live, he walked over to my desk, and he was looking at what we were going to be talking about. He goes, "Ooh, what is that?" He goes, "Mom, that reminds me of tank." Well, I had written tank down in the data. Okay, tank, and it was just random. A lot of random stuff in my data, right? Wrote down tank. He goes, "Mom, this looks just like tank." He said it also looks like this, this, and this. And he went down the list of all these different characters from all these video games that he knows. And this is, let me show some other pictures. These are some artistic depictions of what this gentleman saw that night and what he reported. Okay, I know it's a little odd. I mean, it kind of looks Bigfootish. Looks like a Bigfoot kind of. It looks kind of like a Blimmy. It just kind of looks like it's in a league of its own, John, to be honest. This is an action figure.
It really does. And I mean, what on earth could it be? Well, I mean, we'll see. And I really can't wait for you to explain your remote viewing data, because that's going to be exciting when we're talking about a thing like this. Now that looks like something I may have seen before, but
well, it's from a video game. And my son said, "Mom, that looks like Tank from Left 4 Dead." It's a zombie game, and it looks exactly like some of the depictions of the Grafton Monster, but it's a human with a zombie. It's a zombie. Okay, now, I'm not saying this is a human, but it's got a tiny little human head right there.
It has a human look about it in a way.
It does. But it's so odd. My son saw what we were talking about tonight and all these different characters in his mind. He went down the list, and so I tried to find them to pull them up to show everybody for the show tonight. Okay, so interesting stuff. You're going to see in my data tonight that I make a lot of references to cartoons, Marvel movies, and TV shows. You're going to see it tonight. It's really odd because all this data is rushing in. I'm writing it all down. I'm trying to make sense of it, and I'm seeing characters like from the Teenage Mutant Ninja Turtles. Okay, and so I write it all down. And so it's very cartoonish. That was something else that kept coming up in the data, was cartoonish. And John, I have to tell you from personal experience encountering cryptids, being the cryptid huntress, a lot of times these cryptids seem cartoonish. It's almost like they're not real. Like it's so hard to make out what I'm looking at. I have described them as looking cartoonish, and I know other people, even people who are in the chat tonight, who have been on my show, have mentioned that their encounters with Bigfoot or Dogman, it felt cartoonish. Okay, and I was writing that down in the data tonight. So,
well, I'm gonna have to beg. May I quickly beg to differ on that statement?
yes, yeah, sure.
When I was in a part of Rabun County, which is northeast East Georgia, when I had my signature Bigfoot experience, which is in my book, Look Up in the Sky, I didn't think that there was any kind of cartoon going on when that cabin that I was in was slammed by something that had to weigh 1,300 or 1,400 pounds. There was no notion of cartoon there. It was terrifying. And I don't know, let me just quickly ask a little question to your people in your chat room. How many of them have actually had a Bigfoot experience that they thought was a Bigfoot? Do you mind me asking that question?
You can. I think a lot of people in the chat have. I mean, I'm gonna say about 25 to 30% at least of people in my chat. A lot of people that are in my chat have been on my show. And they've been on my channel before on Spaced Out Radio too. So a lot of people have had encounters, and that's why they come here. We're
Right,
almost
but
like
I'll tell you what, it was just frightening. I mean, there was nothing cartoonish about it. I was just like, God, I can't get out of this cabin. And I hope he doesn't show up and come in and want to have a vodka and tonic, because I might be too afraid to have one with him. So, that's the whole point. I understand what you're saying and your perception of the cartoonish thing, but I'll tell you what, for those of us, and I know that you have had experiences, I know your son Ben has had experiences, I believe they are as terrifying as they come. I mean, I hate to ask you this, Jessica, but do you agree with me on that?
It depends. Yeah, sometimes, yes. The first time, yes, 100%. And especially if you're not expecting to see anything like that, it's life changing for when people have any kind of experience like that. For sure.
Yeah, you just know you've seen something that is strange, and you learn what the term high strangeness really means. And so, I've had those experiences. I mean, I've had them with UFOs. I've had UFO encounters, with space alien encounters, and they're terrifying. They really are. And I'm not afraid to admit it, Jessica. Now, I've been scared before. Let me ask you this personal question. Have you been scared when you had at least one encounter?
I'm so tough. I know. I try to remain calm and tough. Okay. But yeah, sitting in your tent like a sitting duck while something's throwing rocks and acorns at you all night, it's not always fun. Okay.
No,
it's not
it's not.
Yeah. So I'm not going to say I was totally scared, but I've got some of my teammates in the chat tonight actually, and we've never had any super harrowing experiences out there where we were like, I've never run, I've never gone running, I've never ran away from anything. Okay, so there's that. Okay, but that doesn't mean that I haven't been startled. Yeah, yeah. Daryl's in here. Daryl's one of my teammates. What's up, Daryl? Thank you for being here.
Hey, Daryl.
Yeah.
Yeah, I know Daryl.
Oh yeah. Okay. Well, all right. So let's kind of backtrack just a little bit and go over the story. Okay, because this man saw what he saw. Okay, he saw what he saw. He was very startled by it, but he went back and he told two of his friends about it. And I believe it was those two friends that went and kind of blurted it out a little bit and started, the rumor started going around. And that's when they started getting all those calls in. Okay. They started getting in calls to the I guess he worked for the newspaper, I guess. But they
Yeah.
started getting calls in, and that's when, the 20 calls rolled in. Other people were seeing it too. And then all these people started showing up, like the posse. They had like a posse. They had posses that showed up to come and track down whatever this thing was, which reminds me of the Okefenokee giant attack of 1829. That was 150 years before this happened. Okay, almost. But when things like this happen, a posse assembles, and people want to go find it. Listen, I can speak from experience. If we hear about something like this and it's in the area, my team would get together. We'd go scout it out. Okay. I like to say that we're professionals. Okay. But you better believe all the local kids and everybody will probably show up and want to go hunt it down, whatever it
Right.
is.
And I can tell you that there is a similar situation that happened up in Tabor City, North Carolina, right across the state line from South Carolina in 1974, when they had an incident with the Sydney monsters, which were everybody thinks those were out of state, I'm sorry, out of the world beings. And it was terrifying. And I know the sheriff, he had to go out there and say, everybody go home. I don't want someone to be shot. Just because you're looking for a space alien, we don't want there to be danger to the people that are out here. And they all did leave. He was a very powerful man. He's a good friend of mine now. And so he just had to go tell people, leave, because you've all got guns and we don't want anyone to die. So that was good action on behalf of the law enforcement up in Tabor City.
Yeah, you know what? That reminds me of another one. I can't remember the name of that cryptid. I had remote viewed another cryptid. It was like a bird, some sort of like a flying. What was that? Oh, I can't think of the name of it. But anyways, I wish I had thought about that before the show started. I could have pulled up the information on it. There was another cryptid. Somebody in the chat will probably know. There's another cryptid that we remote viewed. It's the name of the town. Okay, is the name of this cryptid, and it's something that was seen on top of a building. People came out and assembled. The posses assembled, and they went hunting for it. I don't think they ever found it. I think they tracked it down to like a cave or something. They look like pterodactyls or something. Anyways, I'll think of it and I'll blurt it out at some point in the show. Okay, that's how I normally roll. Okay, well, okay, so they never actually found the Grafton Monster, John. They never found it, even though they had a bunch of people that reported seeing it. That was a long time ago, 1964. There have been fleeting glimpses of this thing, according to eyewitnesses, since then, but nobody's ever, there's no real pictures of it. There was a crew with the mountain monsters. Okay, it was like a TV show that went out there and kind of put for the normies, as I like to call them. The normies got a taste of the Grafton Monster when they went on Mountain Monsters, that show. But people who lived in the town got kind of upset because they were like, oh, I saw a couple of bad reviews of the show because they felt like it didn't do their town justice when they came out there, and they kind of made fun of it a little bit. So people of that town weren't really happy, according to what I read, with the Mountain Monster show going there. It did not do the monster justice. However, today, just this past year, they started their very first Grafton Monster Festival, some sort of a festival out there with their West Virginia cryptids. They did. This is right up your alley.
This is something I want to go to. I'd love to come talk about that.
For sure. It is the Grafton Monster Festival. Okay, so this just started this past year. And for people who are wondering, where is Grafton, West Virginia? Well, there it is right there. West Virginia sits just northwest kind of actual Virginia over here on the east coast of the United States of America. And so that's where Grafton is. It's kind of north. And I wanted to point this out too. This is the Mothman Triangle. Now, the Mothman Triangle, this is where some of the Mothman sightings are more kind of wet, Midwest part of the state. And the Grafton Monster is a little bit north of there. So just to give you some perspective as to where the Mothman sightings were, as opposed to the Grafton Monster sightings. Okay. But West Virginia is a pretty small state compared to a lot of the states in the US. So it's not too far, probably a couple of hours, according to what I assume. Okay. But anyways, okay. Let's show, I think I showed a couple of pictures. I did show all the pictures for the most part. Here's a sticker. You know, this is kind of the artist rendition. Is a lot of times you see this, it just looks like a blimmy mixed with a Bigfoot, in my opinion. Okay, that's what this thing looks like. But that's it. All right, so this was tasked to me as a blind coordinate remote viewing target. I was given a set of numbers. Okay, I was given some coordinates. And I figured let's just get into the data because there's a lot of it. And as we get into this data, we'll discuss it page by page, because I think this is important. I think it's always important. All these targets are important because I think it brings a new angle to a lot of like the legend and the lore behind these things. I do want to start off by saying, I did say in the beginning of the show today, I do believe this is probably a real being. I do believe this was real. Okay, I do believe it because I got a lot of data. Okay, so I'm going to start off with my sensory data. We're going to go down some of the sensory data. I wrote down wet and graphic, fat, big, round, contained, powerful, leaking, and running. Okay. Okay, so the first things that I wrote down like inhuman, inhumanoid, something that was not quite human. I wrote down water. I wrote down turkey. Okay, so I don't know what a turkey has to do with this. I wrote down turkey, but I wrote down experimental and experiential. Okay, so something that was an inhuman, it was inhuman and an experiment, basically, is what I wrote down. I wrote down big guns. Premise, promise. I wrote down, I started getting data that involved Marvel. Okay, I wrote down like I was seeing like Galaxy. I wrote down Galaxy and I wrote down Marvel, like the Marvel comic books. I wrote down tank was one of my words I wrote down. I was actually kind of getting like extraterrestrial type data. Like I wrote down Sith Lord. Okay, like from Star Wars, I guess. I wrote that down. I wrote down tank and then I wrote down container. Okay, a container. And so, you know, it's not my job when I'm remote viewing to interpret anything. I'm just I'm channeling data. Okay. But when I go back, there's a lot of interesting points here. Okay. Because I wrote down tank, container, and then I started seeing this character, and it's from the Teenage Mutant Ninja Turtles. Okay, let me see. Actually, I forgot to upload the pictures, but they're here. So let me get them real quick. Well, they're not on here. Okay, there's a character called Krang. Okay, Krang with the Teenage Mutant Ninja Turtles. It's actually a gigantic human body of a man that doesn't have a neck. And there is what looks like a squid or a brain that's inside of him that's controlling his every move. Okay, that is separate from the actual body. Now, that's where this data started going, John. Okay, so I wrote down TMT character. I wrote down brain, but I meant to say Krang because I couldn't remember his name. And I was getting data. It was like behind the curtain, like Oz, the great and powerful, you know, like the man.
Right.
And I started picking up on something that seemed kind of mechanical. Okay, so something that was kind of mechanical. Okay, so that's my first page of data. And actually for my drawing, I drew something that looked like Krang inside of that body on the Teenage Mutant Ninja Turtles cartoon. And actually let me see if I can pull up a picture of it for the audience.
Yeah, please do.
Krang. Let me just type in Krang. It'll probably come up. Okay, there we go. Yeah, I'm gonna show this to everybody here. Okay, you know what? It may not upload. Okay, it just looks like a man with something controlling. It's just a shell of a body. It's a container. just like I wrote down in my data, it's a container, and something else is controlling it. Okay, something else is controlling this thing. And yeah, for some reason, my computer will not allow me to open that file. Okay, so y'all look up Krang if you can. Yeah, I'm on my laptop tonight, so everything will go haywire if I try to go against what I'm doing right now. Okay, so Krang. So I find that interesting, John. That's my first page of data. What do you think about that? Do you have any thoughts?
I believe that what you've got there is not necessarily real and natural. I think you've got something that might have been created. Now, that's just what I thought as I was reading this, because when you've got something that shows up for about 2 days and then vanishes, it's indicative of the fact that it's probably not there all the time. I mean, that's just what I think. So you might have a rather transient thing that is just out there running around for a while and then it's gone. I mean, you had 20 sightings within a 24 or 36-hour period, and then you had really no more sightings up there in Grafton. So that tells you that this thing is transient. And transient can be artificial or it can be real and just coming through, but no one's ever really seen this thing outside of Grafton, north, south, east, or west. So it just gives me the opinion that it might be a transient thing and not exactly part of the landscape, so to speak.
Yeah, that's interesting because Barry Littleton and I did a show a while back called we were talking about manifested beings, and he's done videos on it on his channel before. But we were talking about, I don't want to just call them cryptids, because we were talking about Spring-Heeled Jack, I believe, was one of the characters we're talking about. And if you're familiar with that, it's just something that kind of it's one of these characters. I'm going to call it a character. Very similar to even some of the vampires and wolf men that we talk about. They show up and they're here for about a week. Okay, there's a couple of sightings of them and then they disappear and they're never seen again. Okay, and so they're kind of they hop in and they hop out. I believe that's in my data, actually.
I mean, and that is exactly like the Sydney monsters up there in Tabor City. They were here for about 4 or 5 days and then they were gone. No one's seen them since. Made a big splash when they were here, though.
Wow. Very interesting. Yeah. And someone mentioned the golem, and I think that there's some substance behind that actually here, because I picked up this is just the first page. We have 4 more pages to go here, but we're talking about something that is a container, and it's being controlled by something else. I mean, it could even be like we've talked about the vril parasite. Okay, a vril. Are you familiar with that, John?
No, I am not. I'm familiar with the krill, which is a something in the seawater of Antarctica, but not the frill.
Well, this has Antarctic connections as well. And
really?
Something that I'm going to say schmatzy scientist, okay, out of Germany, because we're on YouTube. Okay, like with the Vril Society, you're probably familiar with the Vril Society, potentially, and anyways, there's something called the vril parasite, and they say that it's a little parasite. I actually brought a friend of mine on the show who had an experience where he was held down when he used to be in the U.S. Navy and part of the secret space program. And he had an incident where he was about to be taken over by a vril parasite. Okay, they actually go in, they go into your eye, and your body becomes a container for this parasite. And it takes over your entire body. It basically, you die, your soul leaves the body, and it takes over your body like a zombie.
That's terrifying.
You know what that reminds me of? It actually reminds me of what I just showed a while ago. This zombie that looks like the Grafton Monster. That's a zombie. Something took over its body. Okay, the same tank. Okay, tank. All right. So, anyways, I'm jumping all over the place. Okay, so let's go to page 2. So this is my stage 4 data. for this target. Okay, I wrote down some of my sensory data was crashed and trashed, parallel, square and cube, valiant, proud, unencumbered, metal and metals, squeaky. I actually wrote down the word squeaky. Squeaky, 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 shrill, and shout. That was my sensory data for my second page. And I find that really interesting because when I was reading about the Grafton Monster, the people who claim to have encountered this thing, when they went to go look for it, the three gentlemen, the original guy who saw it and his two buddies, they said that they didn't find anything, but they were hearing something that was a loud, a high-pitched, like whistle. I think they said whistle, right?
Right. That somewhat followed them. If I
Yeah.
remember the story that I read, yeah.
Okay. Well, that's in my data. Okay, it's in my data. Now, it's on my analytic overlay for this. Now, you guys, if you want to see all my data, it is on my Patreon. So you guys, thank you so much to all my Patreon members. I got a lot of y'all in the chat today. Thank y'all so much for being here. So my analytic overlay for that data, that sensory data, was crashed down. And from that, I was picking up on 2 different video games. Okay, so it's so weird that my son was like, Mom, this is all in video games. I wrote down Donkey Kong and Wreck-It Ralph. Okay, now, people who are familiar with video games, I know people in my chat will know what I'm talking about. There's actually cartoons and movies that are about Wreck-It Ralph and Donkey Kong. Okay, especially if you're from my generation, you'll know Donkey Kong. I actually wrote down parallel reality. I wrote multiverse and Spider-Man. Okay, so I was getting a heavy vibe of a heavy data in cartoons that deal with, well, Donkey Kong and Wreck-It Ralph are more about destroying stuff. Okay, but I started getting like the Spider-Man movies. Okay, now before I had gotten the Teenage Mutant Ninja Turtles. Now Spider-Man and TMNT, Teenage Mutant Ninja Turtles, both have movies and cartoons that deal with the multiverse. Okay, the Ninja Turtles, and I know because I have a kid who watches these, used to. Every season is a different dimension. Okay, sometimes the dimensions overlap. The Ninja Turtles always look different because each season is a different dimensional Ninja Turtle. So their cartoon style is different. Their voices are different. It's them, but they're just slightly different because they're in another dimension. Sometimes the dimensions overlap and they meet face to face, and it's really weird for all of them. That soft disclosure for all of us talking about the multiverse. Same with the Spider-Man movies and the multiverse with Miles Morales. I think it was his name. That movie, Spider-Man's I think that Spider-Man's like a different race. Okay, it's like different Spider-Men for different realities and stuff. It's really wild, right? Well, I was getting that here for this data. I also picked up on Valiant Thor on this page. I don't know what he has to do with any of this, but he's said to have been, I think he's from Venus. Okay, so that's extraterrestrial. So that's in my data. I picked up on some kind of awards. I don't know what that's about, but I did, when I picked up on that, I wrote squeaky, shrill, and shout. I actually was picking up on something that was yelling. It's like yells and a gulp, is what I wrote down. Okay, so that's my second page.
And I would say that probably has to do with the sounds that the 3 gentlemen heard as they were out there in the woods trying to find the Grafton Monster, and they were hearing things like squeals and squeaks. I think that's what you might have caught up.
Yeah, 100%. Yes, for sure. Okay, so let's go to page 3. So this is my stage 4 data, page 3. Okay, this is more sensory data, more analytic overlay. Okay, so I picked up on, I wrote safe as part of my sensory data. Safe, home, and home. I felt like I was in a home, somebody's home or a home. And I wrote down heaven at first, and I wrote down safe haven. And then I wrote carte blanche. Okay, carte blanche is like when you just have You have the right to do whatever you want.
Yeah, you can
Okay.
do
You
whatever
have
you want.
authority.
That's what carte blanche is.
Yep. You have the authority to do whatever you want. Nobody's going to stop you. You got carte blanche. Okay. So I wrote safe haven, carte blanche, safe zone, and safe space. Okay. I also wrote down the year 2020 for some reason. So 2020 is in here. Safe travels. I wrote RoboCop. Okay, so I was getting like RoboCop. I even wrote I wrote Robo Rooter, even though it's supposed to be Roto Rooter. I wrote Robo Rooter.
Yeah.
Then I wrote RoboCop. Okay, but okay, here's the thing. So you had mentioned the in and out. We talked about the manifested beings and things that come in and out of our reality. I wrote down
Right.
blasted, and then right beside blasted, I wrote in and out. Okay, blasted in and out. And then I wrote down reality strikes. I heard that clairaudiently. I heard reality strikes. And then I was picking up on like the night sky and like an elevated location, something that was elevated. but I found, okay, so that was my third page of data right there. So that would kind of, I mean, it kind of put me in, I guess, in a mindset, like going back and analyzing that, I would think, well, okay, whatever I'm remote viewing is in a safe place. They've got carte blanche. It's almost like they were told to go there. They were meant to be there. They were directed to go there potentially, and they felt safe being there.
Right.
Okay, so
that makes sense, Jessica. It really does.
Okay, good. I'm glad that makes sense. Okay. All right, let's go to page 4. Okay, so we have, so I mentioned I felt like I was in an elevated location, and I wrote high and high up. I was outside, and I wrote down mountains, woods, and trees. That was some of my tangible data. Okay, so I was, by tangible, it's like you can touch it. Okay, like you can feel it. I was there, like that was my environment, like my aesthetic impact and stuff like that's, like I felt like I was in the woods. Okay, I was 100% in the woods. I was outside, outdoors. And I wrote down like tangled web. I actually saw a spider web, and I wrote that down. But I heard clairaudiently, because I write it in quotation marks when I hear clairaudient, caught in the act. Okay, so something was caught in the act. Wrote down startled and confused. And that's when I started picking up on something that was very cartoonish. I wrote cartoonish, blurred reality, creature comforts, and holograms. John, I wrote holograms. Dude.
Now, holograms, that gets a little scary because we know that holograms can be very dangerous. They can be very realistic. They can be dangerous and everything. So, I mean, do you agree with that?
Well, they can be, but they say if we have something like Project Bluebeam rolling around and trying to convince everyone that we're having some kind of alien invasion when we're not, or maybe we are, maybe they're going to combine real ETs with holograms, and I don't know. I don't know. I think it could be. I mean, we see all this holographic technology in the pop culture right now. Okay, with even at concerts, they had Tupac on stage a few years ago at Coachella, and he supposedly had died, but he was given a live performance as a hologram there. And we know that even on ESPN, they show some of their, like Tom Brady was on ESPN, and he wasn't actually in the studio, but he was standing right beside the other men. But they kept kind of bringing him in and out to kind of show, hey, he's here, but he's not. Okay, because he was probably standing in a basement somewhere, his home, in another room, in a holographic box machine, however that works. And they were beaming him over to the ESPN studio. Okay, so we know this happens. It can be dangerous. Yes, John. Yes.
I guess I always look at the danger side of things when we talk about holograms, because you can imitate anything, and you can convince people that you've got something there when you don't. That's why I have this danger Will Robinson view of holograms. That's just something that I've always had.
Yes. Okay. And Boondock Mojo, Corey Cole. Hey, Corey. It says in Star Trek, holograms can unalive you. Yes. Okay. Very interesting. Okay. Let's go to my 5th page. Okay. This is the final page. And I think this is really interesting data. It's all interesting, but this is super interesting because we just finished off page 4 with holograms, blurred reality, creature comforts. I think that's it. Okay. I started picking up on, so when I wrote down hologram, the next thing I wrote on the next page was screen memories. Okay. Men in Black, screen memories. And I wrote down, like, for sensory data, I was writing down like thinking, memorizing, remembering. And I wrote down, I'd written down the Men in Black movie. And then I wrote down mind wipe. You know, like in that movie, they have like a little pin and they hold it up and then it just wipes your memories. Okay. Like you just lose all your memories. So I definitely in this target, I did pick up on a vehicle or a vessel of some sort that was there. I guess that was that man's car, I guess, because the actual target was the incident that man had when he saw this thing. Okay. So I picked up on a car and it was kind of foggy. I wrote missing time down. Okay, so missing time's there. And I heard put back where you are. Put back where you are. And I got alien abduction data. Okay, so I was the last bit of data that I got was alien abduction data. And I wrote that somebody was taken. Okay. And so this, I just got to say, this is wild data for this target right here. Super wild. I don't know if this guy was actually abducted or taken or what. I don't know what the connection is to ETs with all of this or any kind of, I just think there's experiments going on. There's something that's like a vessel that's being controlled by a higher intelligence. I mean, it kind of gives me vibes of like the Tulpa a little bit, John.
Yeah, the Tulpa, that's a great story. In fact, if some of your folks don't know that, can I give you a little remembrance of the Tulpa?
Please do.
Okay.
I need a refresher too.
Okay, in the late 1800s, Jewish priests, they could get 3 of them. They would walk backwards around a clay figure and they would chant certain very important Jewish prayers, and they could actually bring to life a clay figure called a tulpa. Now, sometimes the tulpa could be kind and good. Sometimes the tulpa could be evil. And there's a story back in World War II that there was a group of German officers in an old house, and they were just living it up, having fun. And a tulpa got in there and killed every one of them. The tulpa was very real, and especially to the Jewish community. They sometimes would live within the community and help everybody. Sometimes they wouldn't. You just never knew. So it was just kind of depends on what you get. But the tulpa is very much a part of the ancient Jewish culture. And you know, I learned that when I was working on some things. And yeah, there's a lot. When I was looking at some Christmas things that could have happened as a result of the tulpa.
Wow. Okay, what is the difference between a tulpa and the golem? Is there, because the golem as well, that could also have something to do with this too. Is that the same thing?
I believe the golem is the same thing as the tulpa. It's a particular character that they were able to animate, but it's the same thing as a tulpa. It's just specifically one of the tulpas.
Oh, okay. Very cool. Okay. It says it's programmed with a purpose and lacks a soul or a will of its own. Such creatures were said to be used to protect sacred places or do chores of the bidding or the bidding of their masters. That's wild, because it just seems like that lines up with my data. It really does line up with my data. And I was actually getting that the data where I was seeing this thing right here, but I wrote down container and then the Krang. Okay, I wrote down the brain because this guy looks like a brain or something, but it was something inside of a container. And it doesn't even have to be inside it, but it was a container that was being controlled by an outside source or an outside force. And so that's, I'm not saying the Grafton Monster is a golem, but it could be.
Well, certainly it could be, or the same type of entity, maybe not created
Yeah.
by German Jewish priests, but it could be the same type of thing. Something was animated in the same way that a golem is animated.
Yeah. I don't know. I think this is a really fantastic target, actually, because it's got so many facets to it, and I am just loving it. It's pretty cohesive to me. It's kind of coming together with the data, and it's just really, it's really weird to me. Like wondering, like who would have been controlling this thing, and how many of these things are running around our planet right now, and do they all
That's a
look like
very
that?
now listen, Jessica. That's a very good and very scary question. How many of these things are roaming around here? Don't know.
Okay, well we also, let's throw this into the mix. The homunculus. We have homunculi running around as well. Some people would claim that during these human resets that we've had, these resets that you and I have talked about with the mud flood, that with the repopulation, they had what was called the Cabbage Patch back in the 1800s, early
Yeah.
1900s. The Cabbage Patch repopulation program. Potentially, this is for entertainment purposes only. We're just kind of throwing it out there, not stating this as fact. But some people think that potentially that those Cabbage Patch kids, the kids on the orphan trains, even some of them that repopulated this country after things were torn down and we had a reset, were grown. They were homunculi. Okay, they were something similar to, I don't know if it's the same thing as a tulpa, but a homunculus, it didn't take two humans to make them. So they're not really human.
That's true. And I've been looking at some resets, like one around 1830, and then another one right before the Civil War, because there seems to be a reason that Sherman went down and destroyed so much of the South. You know, there was no reason to go down there and destroy it other than let's keep some of these inventions that the advanced civilizations had, let's destroy them. So that's something that I am looking at, and we'll talk more about that on another show. Is that okay?
Oh yeah, for sure. I mean, we've got so many topics, John. We could talk about this stuff forever. I mean,
it's fun to speculate and see what we can come up with that seems reasonable.
yes.
I know that's kind of a funny thing to say. Well, what seems reasonable with the mud flood, but there are a lot of things that we can think about and talk about and see where we can go with it. So that's why I enjoy being on your show and talking with you during the week when I do, because we need to try to figure this stuff out. I mean, it's out there. Nobody else is doing it, and I'm glad we are. It's a real pleasure to be working with you in this intellectual experiment of trying to figure out what the heck is going on.
What's really going on out there? What's in them underground bases, y'all? What's going on? Okay, what are we doing here on this planet right now? I'm just having a lot of fun doing this. I know, like, I'm all giddy about it, and I know it's quite sad, but it's fascinating at the same time. And my friend Mark Lynch, I don't know if Mark's in the chat tonight. I've totally not been able to keep up with the chat. We have a ton of people in here tonight, but I met Mark at the East Tennessee Squatch Out recently, and he is with CSI Cryptid. Is it Cryptid Search Investigations? I can't remember, but it's called CSI, and he's a boots on the ground field researcher too. He and I had been talking before I met him online, he was telling me that I believe his grandfather, or maybe it was his great grandfather, maybe it was his grandfather, was part of the orphan trains. And so he's going to be coming on the show soon. We're going to talk about it and get into his family's history and their story behind this, because I don't think that all of the children, there's no way all the children were homunculi and Cabbage Patch and stuff like that, but I think some of them were. So we're gonna talk to him about that, though. I think that's going to be a really interesting show, having someone with firsthand knowledge of the orphan train children and it being part of his lineage, actually. Okay. But it takes us looking into these things, John. I mean, how much have we uncovered recently? You and I together, we've uncovered so much stuff I'd never even heard of. I wasn't even sure if I believed in the mud flood for a long time.
Well, I'm going to tell you, I've got to say something about the mud flood. There are too many buildings where the first floor or the first floor and a half were absolutely covered with mud. And we're just now beginning to uncover those floors and see what's really out there. I mean, I don't know. I mean, the opinions are out, but there seems to be something very strange about all of this, and I'm really interested in this. And what I can say is, now on the 26th, can I go ahead and tell about a broadcast that we're going to do?
Oh, sure. Yeah. Oh, yeah. Well, I want to, before you state that, my audience knows that I don't have an opinion either way, really. I don't state it on air about, you're going to talk about flat Earth, right?
Yeah.
It's one way to get people in a big old argument. So we're going to do a show on flat Earth, you guys. Okay. We are. And, I don't know. Go ahead, John.
Okay. We're going to have Mark Sargent. Mark Sargent is pretty much the head of the flat Earth movement. He's a great guy. He's been a friend of mine. He's been on, I think, 6 scary casts. I talk to him about every other week. And he's going to come on with you and I, and we're going to talk about the mud flood. And he's going to talk about the relationship of the mud flood and the flat Earth. And he and I have been talking about this. There are some serious relationships involved. Now, I don't know what I think, but I do know it is worthy of discussion. So we're probably going to have an hour and a half Christmas, day after Christmas special with Mark Sargent, you and me, and we're going to talk about this. I think it needs to be brought out, don't you?
Okay. Absolutely, I do. And I am open to hearing what anybody has to say about this. Just like Gerald and Jane Fountain, Midwest Night Watchers, and Chiro Sounds are in the chat right now. We did a show on the potential of there being a flat Earth, and we did not give our opinion either way on it. And I still, to this day, have people arguing over my post from going back and forth on that. So it is a very polarizing, so to speak, topic. I would love to discuss it. I mean, bringing all these topics together and just having an open mind about it and hearing what everybody has to say about it. I'm open to it because I'm open to changing my mind. Okay. I personally believe the Earth is a globe. I personally do, but I also think that we live in a hologram sometimes. So I don't know what's what.
I don't know that we actually have the correct viewpoint, but the more we talk about it, flat Earth, round Earth, mud flood, things like that, the more we talk about it, the more we'll probably get the correct perspective of what's really out there. And I mean, I just think it's fascinating. We're some of the people that, there aren't that many people doing this. And I hope in 2025, I'm going to be at least on the program committee for the Flat Earth Conference. We're going to talk about this, and Jessica, it is my intent to have you and I there with Mark Sargent to continue this discussion. You want to be with us?
I will totally go on a show with anybody. Yes, we'll discuss anything. I'm totally down for it. Yeah, we're actually gonna do it here on my channel, and it's gonna be really interesting. I just ask everybody, keep an open mind. That's all we do. We keep an open mind about it. And yeah, I just know how polarizing that topic is, but I'm super open to it. And you've even talked about doing a flat Earth conference, maybe. I mean, that's kind of in the ethers, maybe. And so
Right. As I said,
Yeah.
I'm at least going to be on the program committee, but I would love to actually chair. I'll go ahead and say it. I would love to chair the next Flat Earth Conference in 2025 and have some really interesting, I mean, they have very interesting speakers, but I want to see what we can really bring out and just see how far we can go. So I will let everybody know when I'm on your show and when I'm on Scarycast how all that works. We're going to be talking about that later this month, and hopefully we're going to be talking about it before you, Mark Sargent, and I are on that very special Scarycast on December 26th. I think it's going to be a
Okay.
blast.
Oh yeah. I'm open to whatever to have a discussion. Okay. I've always let people, I mean, I haven't like been super vocal, but I do think the earth is a globe personally. But then again, I'm open to the discussion on it. I'm totally open to discussion. And I think that's the best we all can do, right? I think that's like, that's not asking a whole lot. It's just, keeping an open mind about everything and let's talk about it. Okay. Just talk about it.
You are the most 100% right I have ever heard on that. We can't close our minds to these potentialities, and we don't know, but the more we talk about it and the more we bring out research, the more likely we are to find the truth.
Yes. Yeah, for sure. And Corey, my email is thecryptidhuntress@gmail.com. Okay. Very original. So yeah, please send it to me. I'd love to see that. He says he's got a photo that pertains to the mud flood. Okay.
Oh yeah,
Yeah.
I'd love to see that too. I mean, I see all, now that, Facebook is really good about putting things in front of a person. And I've had a lot, I guess, in the last couple of weeks, a lot of really interesting pictures that I never had that were on Facebook. There are a lot of people, there are a ton of people posting about the mud flood that I'm beginning to find out about and I'm starting to talk to. So, we'll see how it goes.
Yes, yes. I'm down for it. I mean, if people are tuning in to listen about the Grafton Monster and we're talking about golems and tulpas and blimmies and all this stuff tonight, I mean, I can't believe the amount of connections we're making with the Grafton Monster tonight. It blows my mind and I absolutely love it. I I don't even know what to say, John. This is wild. This is just a fascinating cryptid, I guess you can call it. I mean, would we even consider a tulpa or a golem a cryptid?
Well, I believe in the grander sense of things, we would. And all I've got to say is whenever I come on your show, we have the best discussions and we pull from so many disciplines. That's why I like coming on here. As you said, do you want to come on? Yes. That's what I said. That was the first thing I said, because we talk about so many good and interesting things and their connection, because everything, as you know, and as your listeners know, everything is really connected. We just need to discuss it and get everything out there so we can see how it's connected.
Yes, for sure, for sure. And yeah, we sparked a flat Earth debate in the chat. So yes, so
That's okay. I'm
it's
all for it.
okay. It's okay. Yes, so that's why I'm trying to. We're going to circle back around to our wonderful Grafton Monster. This thing has not been spotted since then, really. I mean, people, like I said earlier, people just had fleeting glimpses of this thing. Okay, I'd asked you earlier how many of these things could potentially be walking around our planet right now, and do they look like the pictures that we showed tonight, or do they look like humans? What do you think, John? Could a tulpa, or even I mean, if the homunculus could have been, what we known as like the Cabbage Patch Kids and all that kind of stuff today. They look like humans. I don't know. I mean, I'm not saying these things could be a shapeshifter or whatever, but I don't know. Could something be made out of clay that looks like a human and then
Well,
manifest?
to be honest with you, the golem certainly does look very human. You can tell it's not, but who knows? I mean, the last golem that we've seen was one that was from a movie in like 1916. And no one's really focused on that, but we don't know what the advances are and what golems could look like today. And so, and unfortunately, I don't have access to a lot of Jewish seers and things like that that could tell me. I might like to find some and talk to them. But yeah, the Grafton Monster is definitely a candidate for being a golem.
That's the golem
And
right there. And that looks like the Grafton Monster. This is actually like a stone golem or something. I was finding all sorts of pictures and cartoons and video games, and I was getting a lot of that kind of data actually in the remote viewing data. Was like cartoons, cartoonish, comic book stuff. But this is supposed to be a golem. They're very popular in video games.
well, I tell you what, Jessica, I will do some thinking, and I've got a couple people that I can consult. One is a buddy of mine who's a sorcerer, and I'm due to have him back on the show in January, on Scarycast in January, and we'll talk about some of these things on my shows, and I'll see what I can come up with that I could share with you and your wonderful fans.
Awesome. Well, I just wanted to note that throughout all of that data that we got, or that I got, I never got any data that involved a Bigfoot. So I don't think this is a Bigfoot. Okay. I don't think it's a polar bear. I don't think it's anything but something that was probably manifested, like a manifested being. That's what I think it is. Or with some alien ties. I don't know. I don't know. I don't have a definitive answer as to what I think this thing is. I just have the data. Okay. I only have the data there. And so it's up to everybody who's watching to kind of make your own decision as to what you think it is. Really. I did get like alien abduction data towards the very end of the data. And that's when I closed the whole target down. I ended the session right there because I did not want to get caught up in a remote viewing alien abduction. Okay. I didn't want to be part of that. Yeah.
You're exactly right.
Yeah. So, and missing time too. I think the gentleman may have had missing time. Maybe he didn't know it, or maybe he did know it. He just didn't talk about it.
In my book, Look Up in the Sky, I have several ghost stories that have, and they include missing time, and I think they're scary. And I try not to think about them, but if you want to, when you'll find me at a conference, just come up and buy a copy of Look Up in the Sky, and I'll share with you which stories talk about missing time. They're scary. Oh, what are those newspapers you're showing now?
Oh, yeah, these are newspaper articles that talk about the Grafton Monster. This one says monster result of spring fever and wild imagination. Okay, so of course, all these people came up, all the monster hunters showed up in town, and they wanted to hunt down this monster. And a lot of them had boom sticks. They all had guns and weapons and stuff, and a lot of them are teenagers. And I think it made the sheriff's department a little sweaty around the collar. Okay.
It's exactly like when all those people showed up with guns trying to find the Sydney monsters up in Tabor City. And the chief of police said, now everybody needs to go home and let's let the police try to take care of this. He was right.
Right.
We do not want to put people in jeopardy or in danger. We don't.
That's right. Well, you don't want to, but curiosity gets the best of people. And maybe it's just a boring little small town and there's not a lot to do except to go hunt monsters if they get a chance. Okay. So I feel them. I'm a monster hunter myself. That's what I do for fun. So I would have been there. But anyways, they were trying to kind of quieten it down a little bit and get people to go home. They didn't want people, come into their town. So they were saying that it was just a result of your wild imaginations, had nothing to do with the real monster out there. And then also, of course, like I'd mentioned, the teenagers were showing up. It says teenage monster hunting parties, latest activity on Grafton scene. And they did talk about how it was dangerous, that there were a bunch of kids there with guns and weapons and stuff. And it was basically just a complaint. There's people here.
Yeah.
you did leave. Get off my lawn. That kind of stuff.
Yeah.
And of course, in the past, I'm going to say, I don't know how long ago it was, but within the past 10 years, I'm going to say at some point, Mountain Monster showed up there. And that is a show, I think it's on the Travel Channel or Destination America or one of those cable companies. And they claim to have a footprint of the Grafton Monster. So they claim to have a track, like a print of it. Now, if that's a track, it does look like a bare footprint. It could be a Bigfoot or something. I don't know. But that's what they claimed was actually they went chasing it. And yeah, I mean those guys, that's not what my team does. Okay. We don't go out there, like yahoos running around the woods with our rifles out and stuff. We don't do that. Like the mountain monsters.
I think you're a lot more organized and do things the right way so that you will collect data. That's the only reason you're out there, I believe, is to collect good, solid data that we can build upon for the next time we go out. Is that correct?
Well, yeah. Well, I'm really just out there to have a good time. I really am out there to have a good time and to experience all that the cryptids have to offer. Okay, that's why I go out there. My team does collect evidence and stuff. We totally do, but that's not. I'll be honest with you, John. That's not my main objective when I go out, because we already know that they exist. So I'm not out there to prove it to anybody personally. But there are people on my team that are there to prove it, and we do take our measurements and our data, and we have all of our equipment and stuff. So it happens. But for me, I'm just out there to experience it and to try to communicate with them and stuff. So,
right.
Yeah.
And you do a wonderful job, Jessica. You really do.
Thank you. I appreciate that. Lee Jennifer says, it's the hunters who are most likely to safely handle any aggressive monsters. And that's probably right. They know what to do. And Will says, police and sheriffs can't handle real criminals. So they go for kids and women joywalking. Oh man. Sometimes that does happen sometimes, but yeah, I think it was just kind of overwhelming because it was a small town and they weren't used to having all those people there. Okay. I still can't remember the name of that cryptid that I remote viewed out of that small town. And they had all these people that came to come track it down. I can't remember. I'll think of it after the show. But same thing happened in that small town, and it overwhelmed the entire town. And the entire police force got really overwhelmed and insisted that everybody leaves. So, yeah. Well, I don't know, John. This has been another fantastic show, and I'm so glad that you came and hung out with me tonight.
Well, thank you. I've really enjoyed it.
Me too. What is your final thought on the Grafton Monster? What do you think it is?
Do you really want to know?
Yes, I want to know. Inquiring minds want to know, John.
Okay, I think it's an extraterrestrial being. I think it's just like the Sydney monsters. And we have these things that'll be around for almost a week and then they vanish. They're never seen again. And they don't go anywhere. I mean, they don't just, vanish. I think that's what I think. But now, maybe I'm the true conspiracy theorist, but I think there are a lot of extraterrestrial monsters that we are subject to see and experience. So that's what Dr. John says. I don't know what else to say, but tell the truth, tell what I think. So there you go.
Yeah. Okay. Well, what about, okay, I know this could take us down a little small rabbit hole here. When we talk about them coming in and out of this reality, could they be coming in and out of portals? Do you think that's a possibility?
Well, I think they have to, because that's the only way you can switch from one reality to another, is generate a hole that you can navigate in. That's what I think they do. And we can't see them. I mean, I thought I saw a portal once. I really did. And I didn't want to be any part of it. I didn't want to, but it's like being on Mount Shasta and seeing a portal and walking in and never being seen again. That's too scary for me. I don't want to, I just don't want to do that. I kind of like this earth, and I would
Yeah.
rather investigate this earth than vanish. So, yeah, I think they go in and out of portals. And I'll tell you, a big place, a big location for portals is Northeast Georgia. It
Yeah.
really is.
Yeah.
And you've
We
been
might
up there too.
Yeah, I've been up there. I was just up there recently. And yeah, we might have encountered a portal or two up there, as a matter of fact. So yeah, they're all
Well,
over the place. And I do think the cryptids a- access them.
well, now I'm going to tell everybody that we're going to have some more data from some portals in Northeast Georgia because you and Ben and me and a buddy of ours, whose name I will hold until next time, we're all going to go portal hunting and seeing what we can find next weekend, next Saturday. You remember that day?
Yes, I do. I do. I have it on the calendar. And yes, I'm going to
Good.
take my stick and I'm going to poke around at some portals, I guess. Oh
Yep.
man, that's going to be fun. I hope the
And
weather's
if we
nice. It's
get in
supposed to get
trouble,
really
real what?
really cold. It's supposed to get really cold tonight. And it's going to
Oh,
stay cold this week. So we'll
okay.
deal with it. We'll handle it. Yeah, we'll be all
Well,
right.
we're not talking about this weekend. We're talking about next weekend. And if we get in
Yeah.
real trouble, I'm going to count on Ben, your son, to save us.
Oh my God. I can promise you, I will tie a rope around that child's waist no matter where we go. Okay. And nobody's accidentally walking into a portal, and I'm going to have a leash on him. Okay. I can promise you that. We're really just going to go look for some Bigfoots, y'all. Okay. That's what John's really saying. But we might
Yeah, but
encounter
we're going to some places that I believe are pretty iffy.
a poker.
So I will hope that everybody comes out alive.
Oh my God. Don't say that, John. That sounds horrible. We
Well,
always come out alive. We're going to be fine.
okay. I
I'm gonna
just
take my
hope
portal
that
poker.
everything's good and we have a grand time and that we can tell everybody about it when we're on the 26th. I think
Yes, or
that would be great.
I probably have to leave my kid home, man, if we're gonna worried about that. Oh my gosh, but I will. I love the portal poker. Thank you, Jane. That is so cool. I'm gonna make a shirt that says portal poker on it. Okay, that sounds weird. Hold on, maybe I won't. All right. Well, on that note, John, tell everybody about all your conferences you have going on and where people can find you with Scary Cast and Bigfoot and Company.
Okay, I'm going to be reading so that I don't forget. Okay, this
Okay.
Sunday, I've got our buddy Ryan Tremblay. Do you know Ryan Tremblay?
I do. He's a friend of the show. Love me some Ryan. He's
Yeah,
really awesome.
yeah, Ryan's going to be on my show, and we're going to be talking about tribal Bigfoot. That's on Sunday. And then Tuesday night, we're going to have John Price, who's a member of MUFON in Alabama. Going to have him there. We've got Elijah Henderson on Scary Cast coming on the 17th, the 26th. We've got you and Mark Sargent. That'll be a lot of fun. And then we're heading on to the UFO conference on the 11th of January in Blue Ridge, Georgia, near Mineral Bluff. So that's going to be fun. And then the Georgia Bigfoot Conference is coming up the 11th of March, and that's in Demarest, Georgia, at the one and only Piedmont University. That's going to be great. Our first event there, and I hope we'll be having a few other events there. It's a beautiful campus. They've got an incredible, huge ballroom that we're going to be able to use. So I'm really looking forward to it. And you're going to be there with us at those events. And we're just going to keep having fun because, you know what, Jessica? I think you and I both love this cryptid world, don't we?
I do. I do. And it loves us. It loves us. We love us some cryptids. And that's why we do it. We do it because we love it. Also, you have your Scary Cast. How can people find Scary Cast and your Bigfoot and Company YouTube
Okay,
channel?
just go to scarycast.com. You'll have links there to Bigfoot and Company and links to the podcast on iHeartRadio. So just go to scarycast.com, and there we are. And if you have any questions, just email me, Dr. John Stamey @gmail.com. Send me an email. I'll be glad to answer any questions. I'll be glad to tell you when stuff's coming up. I'm going to put the upcoming Scarycast schedule up tomorrow so that people can see where it is. Just go to scarycast.com, but don't go till tomorrow because I'm kind of tired tonight, and I will do that in the morning. I'll put it up. Okay?
Yes, y'all wait. Okay, definitely wait. Okay, let me pull this down. Yeah, all my moderators have been putting all your links in the chat all night, and so thank you to all my moderators. I've been seeing y'all in here doing that. I appreciate each and every one of y'all. We have the best chat on the planet for sure. The best live chat. My gosh, it went so fast tonight. I was having trouble keeping up, so I just I'm sorry I didn't get all the comments pulled up tonight, y'all. But I want to thank everybody for being here. It's awesome. This is a wonderful way to end my Thursday night talking about this. I hope everybody learned something about the Grafton Monster tonight. I mean, I know I've learned a whole lot. And John, you were wonderful for being here.
Thank you. Anytime.
Okay, wonderful. Well, we'll have you back soon. Okay, we'll definitely have you back soon. And you guys, please come back and see me on Saturday night. I will be here as we go on the hunt at 10 p.m. It's going to be another awesome show. So y'all come back. It is really about to get super cold here in Georgia, from what I understand tonight. So y'all bundle up out there. Everybody stay safe. I know that I think the whole Southeast is getting cold tomorrow and tonight. So I hope everybody's safe. Oh, and I heard there was like an earthquake over in California. Brown Dwarf, shout out to you. I hope you guys are all safe over there. Tremors, tsunami warnings, all this weird stuff happened today over there. So I hope everybody's safe. And I wanted to end the show on this. Somebody sent me a picture. It's got a red circle in it, y'all. John, I'm not real big on the pictures with the red circles, but someone saw what they think is a Yeti in the woods. Okay, and they sent me this.
Oh, wow.
I just wanted everybody to check this out. Okay. I hope y'all enjoy this. I think that's Bumble. It's a joke. It's funny. Okay. So I wanted to end it on a fun note tonight. And so you guys, please come back and see me on Saturday night. John, you're the best. I will see you guys later. Let me get my things pulled up here. All right. Y'all stay safe out there. Keep your heads on a swivel, or your head on a swivel, please. And hopefully we only have one head. Most of us have a head. Most of us do. If you're a blimmy, you don't. Shout out to all the blimmies who are watching tonight. Holler at me. Come on the show. All right.
There you go, Jessica.
Y'all have a great night. We'll see you Saturday. Bye, John.
Bye.